Jamie Durie, welcome to Global Travel Media. It's a great pleasure to have you here today. And the purpose of this informal chat for our viewers is for you to tell me all about this exciting announcement, by Chiodo. They're an innovative property developer, and your company some time ago was appointed to, and this is Durie Design, okay, to create the hotel architectural concept and then the landscape architecture for a new $300 million luxury resort, the Fairmont in Port Douglas. So this has taken about over a year, I believe. So tell me, what have you been up to and what's been happening?
So we were appointed on the project. It was a great honor, actually, because it really the first Fairmont hotel to come into Australia. And all credit to Accor. They've got an incredible brand there. I mean, the Fairmont's very, very well known globally. Yeah. Certainly I've stayed at quite a few of them in the Middle East and in the US and Canada and all over the world. It's about time we have one here in Australia.
It is, yeah.
I couldn't be more proud to have put it together for the team at Chiodo and Accor.
Now, you're recognized as a pretty green sort of guy, okay? So many people wouldn't recognize you being involved in the building architecture. So tell me more about that and how do you integrate? Because so many hotels you go to seem isolated from the landscape side of it. They've got a building and then there's a garden, and the two things don't gel somehow. Whereas, you know, my background is with a National Trust where very much the building and the garden was integrated. Tell me how you've achieved that within this resort.
So when we were first awarded the conceptual architecture stage of the project, we went about designing more of an organic shape to the hotel to begin with. So we looked at some of the surrounding topography of Port Douglas, and it's really one of the only places in the world where you've got two World Heritage sites, UNESCO listed sites, that come together, being the rainforest and the Great Barrier Reef. So of course, when you dive into the Great Barrier Reef, you start to see all sorts of beautiful shapes and shells and things. We took the Nautilus shell and we joined two of them together and we created this sort of semi-elliptical shape that had a very tapered topography over the top of the hotel. And that enabled us to create a series of terraces where the sun could fall onto 100% of the building, rather than building a building that straight up and down, where quite often half the building's in shadow for most of the year. When you start to taper a building like this, almost like a pyramid, but in a terrace type shape, suddenly now natural light absolutely envelops the entire hotel, and then it becomes the easiest place in the world to grow garden on. And that's exactly what we did. We've shaped the whole hotel and terraced it in a way that now we can grow gardens on every single level, on every terrace, and most importantly, the rooftop garden, which is going to be, you know, one of the biggest, I guess, attractive points for the hotel, because it's about weddings, it's about rooftop events, it's about beautiful outdoor dining, and of course views over the mountains and the ocean.
And it's not an insubstantial hotel. It's about 250 rooms, isn't it? So it's quite a big hotel. And it's the first new hotel to be built in Port Douglas, I think, for 20 years or so. So in terms of the Daintree as well, does that come into the whole sort of concept as well?
Yes. So it's 253 rooms all up. The lower floors have their own private courtyards with in-ground swimming pools, outdoor bathtubs, outdoor showers. And even as you move up into some of the upper terraces, in some of the rooms, you have as much outdoor space as you do indoor space. It really is a hotel that embraces garden. And we were very clear from the start on our brief to help deliver this to all of the guests. I think gardens have a lovely way of gluing people together and providing a sense of well-being. And I think post-COVID, we could all use a little bit of well-being and a greater connection to nature. And if you can do that under the Fairmont brand, in conjunction with all of the luxurious sort of surroundings that the Fairmont is sort of so well known for. Well, what better way to enjoy the environment and to respect the environment in turn than to create a green hotel that treads lightly on the planet, but also offers the guests this very intimate, exclusive experience with garden in the privacy of their own compound. So we're not talking about gardens that are open to the public. We're talking about private, exclusive gardens that are exclusive to those guests who have booked some of those rooms.
Wow.
The landscape architecture itself really was about creating beautiful balconies that were dripping with greenery. So that when you look up at the building, you see these cascading waterfalls of greenery off every terrace. And that I think is one of the most attractive points around the hotel. And I think the idea of controlling the heat that goes into the hotel by insulating it with natural garden and of course using native vegetation, you're not only putting the birds and the bees back into that native environment, but we're also turning the hotel inside out and putting a rainforest into the lobby.
Wow. That's unusual to begin with. But tell me, was it a hard sell in a sense? It's quite interesting when you think about these things, in that, did you have a blank sheet of paper and you said, right, okay, this is my concept. This is what I want to design. There you go, Fairmont and the developers, Chiodo. Did you have to convince them, or was it did they go, wow, this is exactly what we want?
Yeah, I think from the start, the team at Chiodo have wanted a green concept. I think that's why we started talking. My background obviously is in landscape architecture, and as a horticulturalist, certainly I'm going to add greenery to whatever form of architecture we get involved in. We teamed up in collaboration with Buchan Architects, who gave us a peer review through the first few months, and then we went on and delivered the entire concept, and they're now in the documentation stage of it. So it really was a lovely collaboration and a lovely meeting of the minds, and I think that can only really be done when the developer themselves wants a green outcome. And it's very unusual for one firm to be awarded the architecture and the landscape. But I think that's what's made this very, very special, because we've had to play in both fields. We've been able to create this beautiful cohesion between the indoors, the outdoors, the landscape and the architecture, and create something that's truly successful that'll eventually become very low maintenance, because the easier you can grow gardens, the less maintenance you have to put into them to keep them alive. In other words, you won't have to develop any more blisters on your hands, mate, to maintain these gardens.
It's hard, isn't it? It's a hard life, isn't it? Hey, listen, before we go, I think some of these hotel companies, I'm not suggesting it's the case here, sometimes it's a bit of lip service to the environment and sustainability. But it seems to me here that the way this hotel has been designed by you guys from concept, it embraces sustainability in all the ways, in all the ways it should be. And its location with the Daintree on one side and the Great Barrier Reef on the other side. Give me just a couple of elements of the sustainability and the environmental side of things that are not perhaps unique to this hotel, but are a key part of this hotel, because a lot of people today are looking for sustainability when they book a holiday these days. So there must be some elements in there that you're very proud of.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, when we first came on board, we were very keen to deliver as many sustainable or renewable concepts to this design as we possibly could. We have suggested things like thermal solar energy, which I believe is really one of the future leading points of solar energy. It's basically a field of mirrors that directs sunbeams into one rod, and that rod sits in a molten salt kind of a platform, which becomes the battery for all of the solar energy. So it's not only a solar field that's the size of a football field, which the team are looking at possibly creating off-site in a disused cane field nearby. and then they would pump energy back into the hotel, and any surplus would be fed back into the community. That's the original concept. They're working through all of the logistics of that now.
Yeah.
They're also looking at, we suggested solar vegetable gardens up on the rooftop to feed most of the kitchens and so forth.
That's good.
We're talking about maintaining and harvesting all of the water runoff. I mean, look, Port Douglas gets somewhere around 3 meters of rain a year.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It would be an absolute shame to send all of that straight out into the river systems and so forth. If we can harvest as much of that as possible and use that for irrigation, that's the plan. Using organic fertilizers so that we're not over fertilizing and we're managing all the nitrogen runoff. That's been a big problem, I think, up there near the Barrier Reef. Managing all the runoff and controlling any of the stormwater system runoff, so that whatever we do put back into the landscape is absorbed into our gardens. We're also looking at using sustainable materials within the interiors. So, using things like bamboo cottons, or even eucalyptus threads, sustainable threads. Some of the flooring, we're talking about using semi-sustainable or even 100% sustainable flooring. We're talking about using low VOC paints, so there's no volatile organic compounds going out through the hotels. Even the carpets and the textiles and the fabrics, we're talking about using low VOC. So where it all ends up is certainly, but that's our wish list, and that's what we've suggested to the team. And we certainly hope to make our mark in terms of green initiatives.
Well, it definitely sounds like you're making your mark. Now, one of the factors when you walk into a hotel, and I talk about this in tourism a lot, is the wow factor, because people want a wow. So for you, what will be the wow factor when I walk into this hotel, to the hotel, and I'm going to walk in or pull up outside? What do you think is going to be the wow factor that's going to impress me?
Well, I think what's really going to excite you is it's not every day you see a little snapshot of the World Heritage Daintree Rainforest sitting in the lobby of the hotel. And I'm talking, at a height of 18 meters. That's an incredibly high series of native palm trees. We're using the wax palms that are native to that particular area. We're using Cyathea cooperi and a whole range of beautiful tree ferns, the king tree ferns that grow naturally in that area. All of the beautiful natives that we see in the Daintrees that we're able to use in that lobby in a semi-controlled environment. Obviously, there's a gentle mix between the air conditioning levels, the humidity levels, and the natural light coming through the skylights of the roof. It's essentially been like creating a giant greenhouse, only it's a 5-star lobby where you check in. And then when you ascend to the various levels of the rooms, you still get to look back on this treetop view of an internal rainforest. You've then got the choice of going out the back to some infinity edge pools. We've got indoor, outdoor areas. You've got swim lanes. Beautiful. You've got wedding gardens on the rooftop, fine dining experience. There's 7 food and beverage locations throughout the hotel. We've got a beautiful 5-star gym, a sauna and a spa and a wellness center. It really is going to offer the best.
It's amazing.
And we've also got we've also, most importantly, got a lovely involvement with the local Indigenous community, where they will bring in some of their arts and some of their cultural items to share, I guess, some of the deeper cultural side of that local area with tourists worldwide, so that they can acknowledge the original custodians of that particular area, and learn a little bit about our Indigenous culture, which I don't think happens enough these days in the industry.
Yeah, and also accurate Indigenous culture and not necessarily touristy. So that's why it's important to have the local community integrated in this. And I mean, all, as you said before, in a 5-star setting. I think it's incredibly important, Jamie, and I'm really impressed to hear that you've taken on the Indigenous side of things. It's so important for visitors to Australia. And Port Douglas and that area is so critical in terms of international visitation, or it will be in the future when visitors can come back, to have authentic Indigenous experiences. And I think it's great for the Indigenous communities as well to be integrated and have a sense of belonging. But the most amazing part as well is this is all in a 5-star environment, which is amazing. So I suppose the big question is, when can John Alwyn-Jones go and stay there? No, when can anybody go and stay there? When will the hotel be finished?
Look, the hotel's currently in DA. We've had some fairly positive responses so far.
Good.
I think the community are very excited to do something with that site. There's been a couple of attempts over the last 20 years, but look, all going well. I would hope that we would break ground sometime over the next couple of months, and they're looking at about a 2-year construction period.
So the hotel, you think, will open in about 2022, something like that? Is that right?
Yeah. Or I mean, if all goes well, we'd plan to get open before Christmas at that stage. Yeah, that'd be great.
Brilliant. Well, I think it's a fantastic stimulus for the Australian industry, tourism and the hospitality industry at this time of very difficult experiences, especially with the borders closed. International tourism is pretty well dead at the moment. Well, it is dead. I mean, there's nobody coming to Australia. So I think it's very stimulating and exciting and such an iconic property. And I do love the concept of the integration of the building and the green. You know, with my background in the National Trust, it took me a while to sort of understand when I was working for them about that whole concept. That people like Capability Brown and people like that integrated that sort of work many, many, many years ago. And in today's terms, they spent billions.
I couldn't agree more. So I think this will be a great asset to the Australian tourism industry, and it'll be nice to see Australians travelling within Australia and experiencing the top end like they've never experienced before.
Well, Jamie Durie, thank you very much for your time. Congratulations to you and your team. And I look forward to seeing this amazing hotel, the Fairmont Port Douglas, open whenever it does open, which presuming the DAs and everything go well, first spade in the ground. And I promise I won't put any blisters in my hand if I'm there for it.
Good on you, mate. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Jamie. Take care, my friend. Bye-bye now. Bye.